Okay, everybody, I'm at Games&Geek, and I'm looking up Risk Games Official. What is not meant to be included in this family is fan-made maps, expansions, components, rules, adaptations, reinterpretations. For that, you were to see series Risk-like for those clones, knockoffs, and or games that, even though barring idea or mechanics from the Risk franchise, do not belong in it. Again, those would go into series of Risk-like deviations, which are derivatives, which would be Italians, Eldritch, Glotch, Risco, Brazilian, Groves, War, and Argentinia's Yetums, and TEG games, those belonging to their respective families. So the list of Risk games, of course, is the very first one, La Conquête du Monde. Then we've got Risk, Castle Risk, Risk and Castle Risk, Risk Edition Napoleon, Risk Edition Napoleon Extension Empire Ottoman, 40th Anniversary Collector's Edition, 2210 AD, Risk Lord of the Rings, Risk the Lord of the Rings expansion set, including the Siege of Minas Tirith game, Risk the Lord of the Rings Trilogy Edition, Risk Godstorm, Risk Star Wars Clone Wars Edition, Risk Star Wars Original Trilogy Edition, Risk Express, Narnia Risk Jr., Risk Transformers Cybertron Battle Edition, Risk Black Ops, Risk Revised Edition, Risk Balance of Power, Risk Horse Severe, Risk Halo Wars Collector's Edition, Risk Metal Gear Solid, Risk Legacy Bonus Cards, Risk StarCraft Collector's Edition, Risk Halo Legendary Edition, Risk The Walking Dead Survival Edition, Risk Plants vs. Zombies, Risk Mass Effect Galaxy at War Edition, Risk Battlefield Rogue, Risk The Dalek Invasion of Earth, Risk Transformers The Subsequent Invasion of Earth, Risk Star Wars Edition, Risk Marvel Cinematic Universe, Risk Game of Thrones, Risk Europe, Risk Star Trek 50th Anniversary Edition, Risk Captain America Civil War Edition, Risk Rick and Morty, Vikings Risk The Conquest of Europe, Risk Office Politics, Risk Assassin's Creed, Risk The Battle for Medieval England, Risk The Elder Scrolls V Skyrim, Risk Asterix Collector's Edition, Risk Warhammer 40k, Risk Positions It Marches, Folklores de et Sombre et Myths, Risk Deep Space, Risk Shadow Forces, Risk Pinky Blinders, and Risk Strike. We're going to look at each individual one. La Conquest de Morte. I do not own that Risk game. I own most of these versions right here of this game. I have a copy of this, Castle Risk. There's one called Super Risk. Don't think I have the boat. I'm not sure. I have this copy right here, Risk and Castle Risk. I have a copy of this. Here is one I do not have a copy of, Risk Edition Napoleon. or the expansion set. I have a copy of this. Unfortunately, mine was missing, I think, one set of armies. It's supposed to have 6 sets of armies. I think mine only had 4 or 5. I have this Rich 2210 AD. I have a few boxes of it. I have both the big box and small box. I have this game, Risk Lord of the Rings. It's really good. What I don't have is the Risk Lord of the Rings Gondor or Mordor expansion set, which comes with the Minas Tirith game, which would be pretty cool. I kind of need that just for the Minas Tirith Siege game. I have this copy, Risk Lord of the Rings Trilogy Edition. It basically adds everything but the Minas Tirith Siege game, so the expansion. I have this Risk Godstorm. It's actually a pretty good version of Risk. Pretty sure I have maybe 2 copies of it. Pretty good game. I have this game and I have several copies of it. The 2 Star Wars editions. That's not part of it. Not sure why that image is there, but that image is actually not part of this particular version. I have Star Wars. This is the original trilogy edition. I have this game. It's actually a pretty good game. I do not have this Risk dice game here. That blasted! Shh. Trying to hit Narnia Risk Jr. and it keeps hitting the wrong one. I don't have this game either, and Risk Narnia Jr. I do have a Risk Jr., but not this Risk Jr. This is a game I would not mind getting because I liked the Chronicles of Narnia movies, The Lion, the Witch, Wardrobe. I have this one, Risk Transformers. It's actually a pretty good game. I do not have this one, but I don't really care to have this one because it's just, I have that other one, so it's not necessarily needed. Did blasted stupid fingers. This is the one I have. So that other one is just a more limited, a more special edition of this one. This is like the retail version. That one's like the special version. But I have this one, and I don't particularly like this more version because of the pieces mainly. It's not a bad version. It's just, yeah. Here is a version of that same version, except for it's for 2 players, Risk, Balance, Power. So it's kind of like a Risk Rivals edition type game, where there's only 2 players, and it's looks like it's only set in Europe, so it's kind of like a 2-player Risk Europe. Four different basic starting setups. This is a Risk game I do not have. Also known as Risk Astrax. It's based off of a some kind of cartoon comic book or something that is in France. There's Risk Halo Wars here, which I have. I have this game. It's pretty good. I have this one too. I have like 4 copies of this one. I need like 2 more copies to complete something that I'm trying to do with it. It's actually pretty good. The reason I won't need 2 more copies is so that I can implement the Outer Haven faction as a 6th player faction, and I can give every player their own individual Outer Haven ship, and then create my own little special ship-to-ship war game. I have this one. I actually have more than 1 copy of this one. I like it. It's pretty good. I've done videos of this one, and I've also done spoiler videos of this game. And I'm actually currently doing a campaign of Risk Shadow Forces, which is the next one of that one. What I don't have, of course, are these bonus cards. Which may be interesting. So there's like a print and play download section here. I have this game, StarCraft Risk. It's pretty good. It has some of the same rule as in, as in the Star Wars one. Here's the Legendary Edition with the ring map and 2 skirmish maps. Actually, it's pretty cool. I like it. If you combine this one with the other Halo game, and you have 2 of this copy, you can combine the ring map, the 2 skirmish game maps, and the map for the first Halo game all together, and have like 3, like have 2 planets and 2 like moons or whatever all fighting together. It's pretty cool because you have like 3 maps working together. Then there's Risk the Walking Dead game. I actually have this game. It's pretty good. I like it because the zombies, they keep showing up and they keep showing up, which makes it where it's almost impossible to win. The longer you play, the more zombies show up and show up and show up, which makes it almost impossible to do a world conquest style game. So you have to try to win based off of like missions that you complete. Pretty cool. So I have this game. It's kind of fun. In a way, it's a 2-player version of Risk. And the skirmish game on the back, where you play kind of like the video game, is actually pretty cool to play too. I have this one too, Mass Effect. I think Mass Effect's kind of like the Star Wars one too. So, yeah. It kind of plays like the Star Wars one. Yeah. Totally really cool trilogy edition. I also have this Risk game, which is nothing like Risk. It's actually more of a instead of being a Risk game, it's more of a tactical miniatures skirmish type game. I think they took the Risk Battlefield Rogue tactical skirmish idea, and I think that's how they implemented the skirmish game from the Risk Legacy 2.0 Risk Legacy. Actually, Risk Shadow Forces. Yeah, I have this Risk game, Dalek Invasion of Earth. It's kind of okay. Once the Doctor shows up, the game ends. So that's kind of an interesting take. Where actually in this game you're playing various different Daleks from different Doctor Who eras, and you basically, and Doctor Who TARDIS shows up and helps, and whichever Dalek for action is in charge by the time the last Doctor regenerates is the have this game too. This game's actually pretty cool. This game is the game you play after you finish playing Transformers Risk Cybertron. So after you finish playing Cybertron, you can play this one. And this one, basically, there's like 3 different factions of the Decepticons and 1 faction of Autobots or something like that. And then there's partisans or humans which are fighting the Decepticons. So it's pretty good. It's kind of neat. I have this one. This is it's not exactly a Risk game. It's kind of, but it's kind of like the Risk Battle for Rogue, where it's more of a kind of a tactical miniatures and combat in space type game, where you don't necessarily conquer territories, but y'all fight each other. It's basically the Battle of the Death Star, where they try to the pieces are awesome though, where they try to conquer the it's a 2-player game, yes, and it's pretty good. I have this one, and I would not have named it Marvel Cinematic Universe. I would have named it Risk New York, Marvel New York, or something, because it's mostly set place in a map of, New York. But I don't even think it's all of New York. I think it's just Manhattan. And every hero / villain in the MCU at the time is cool. Plus, on the back, there's this Guardians of the Galaxy card game, which is, the card game is nothing great. The game is pretty cool. It has like these, but it's kind of weird too, where you're like each faction, like there's Captain America, there's Iron Man, there's I think the Winter Soldier, Hulk shows up every once in a while, and there's Ultron, and then of course there's a Shield Halo carrier, which is pretty cool that you can. So there's like neutral Shield factions. There's like Iron Man. All right. Anyway, that was weird. Got the wrong number. Yeah. Anyway, the game it's weird but kind of cool, fun at the same time. Anyway, next game is Risk Game of Thrones. I also have this game. I like it because it has 2 boards The problem with that, well, so what you can do is you can play a standard game on one board or the other board, or you can combine both boards together to have a huge game. And it also has like 7 factions, which is pretty cool. So yeah. I have this game too. So this game is basically, it's kind of like Risk, kind of not like Risk too, because it's more of a tactical miniatures game in a Risk type board setting. So it's kind of neat. I have this game and it's not exactly how I would have made a Star Trek Risk. It's 50th Anniversary Collector's Edition. It's a little weird, different, because it basically has you as the various different captains throughout history. You're supposed to, 5 captains. Y'all are supposed to basically fight each other and try to take these spots where there's these neutral alien factions, which are interesting. Risk Captain America Civil War Edition, it's basically another somewhat tactical miniatures-ish game where it's 4 factions trying to fight, really 2 factions, but it can be made into 4 factions, and they're all trying to fight each other. And yeah, it's just a little, it's more of a tactical miniatures game, so it's more like Battlefield Rogue. And you're basically at the airport trying to capture and find a Winter Soldier. Then there's Risk Rick and Morty. I have this game too. It's kind of neat. I mean, you're basically playing. You're not really playing as Rick and Morty. You're playing as these different groups, and the different groups, 5 faction groups, are trying to control planets and locations. And of course, Rick and Morty show up and do things every now and then to both hurt and harm you. I do not have this particular version of Risk Vikings. It's one that I need to get. So I do have this one, and this one you could actually get, I think, at Bargain Hunt. This is probably the worst one that they made because the rules are just ridiculous. And I think this was one of those parody games when they were doing those parody lines. It didn't go out very good. Here's one I don't have but would like to get, is Assassin's Creed. edition of Risk. So it's basically just regular standard Risk, but with an Assassin's Creed kind of flavor text. This is another one I do not have. This one I believe you can only get directly from I think you can only get this game directly from England, from the United Kingdom, you know. I think you have to buy it from them, from their historical society or whatever. Then here's Skyrim Risk, another one I don't have, but would like to get. It looks like it has some interesting pieces, and you play in the world of Skyrim, which is pretty cool. Here's the Risk Junior that I do have this Risk game. It's not bad. It's actually not a bad game. It's actually a pretty decent game. You know, go fight your. Basically, it's pirate theme. It's pretty cool. I like it. Wish they would make some more like junior edition types. Here is Risk Astrax Collector's Edition, which is basically I think a re-implement of the other game. Might be hard to find because there was only 5,555 copies. It's in English and German, so it's some kind of cartoon comic book based off of Rome. Here's the latest one I actually do have, which is Warhammer 40k. I got it recently, so a lot of people are saying that they messed up a bunch about it, but I'll have to play it and, you know, figure it out. Let's see for myself. This is some Risk game about a marching band. I'm not even sure. You're playing as marching bands trying to take over. Trying to take over different march bands. Not sure why that one was even made or created. But, okay. Here's one I got, and I think you can pick this one up at Bargain Hunt for not a bad price because I've seen it at Bargain Hunt. And it's not really Conquering the Universe. This is part of their space theme that Hasbro did, a space theme. This is my other newest one. I have this game. Like I said, I'm currently working on playing it and getting through. I think I'm halfway done. I heard that this is probably one of the worst ones that they made. But I still would like to get a copy just to be completing my Risk games. Of course, no. This is the card game. I actually have a copy of this one now because it was on clearance at Walmart. Just have not unboxed it yet. And that is all the Risk games. Now I can check Risco. It's a Risk type game. We'll look at it. It's Risco. I think it's basically German Risk. Risco Pal. So you got 3 empires. Then we got Future Risco, which is basically a risk set in the future. Risco End Zone Tournament. I think it's a tournament version of Risco. Tournament objectives. I believe there's Risk Card. It's a card game version of Risk. You use all cards. Well, technically Risco isn't Risk. There's Risco Prestige. Italian. Risco Master. It's basically a Master Edition of Risco. So these are mostly different editions. And here's a SPQR Risco, which is basically it's basically Rome. It's Roman Risk. There's an Express Risco, which is basically it's same as Risk Dice. Risco Junior. Of course, it's basically a Risk Junior, which is looks like the same as Risk Junior. Maybe. Of course, there's a Challenge Risk. Basically, it's the Italian National Championship edition. Got a Pocket Risk here, which is basically a travel version of Risk. Strum Tripping Risk. It's a Risk based off of a some kind of cartoon or TV show or something. Then there's a Risk Go Z, which is basically a zombies version of Risk. Which is kind of like Call of Duty Zombies Risk. I don't remember seeing that. Here's an interesting one. There's a Risco Batman where you basically conquer Gotham City. So this is basically the DC version of Risk. So basically it's the DC version of Marvel's Risk. Then there's a Risk Antarctica here where you, for some reason, conquer Antarctica. Don't know why you'd want to conquer Antarctica, but there is this. There's Risco Nepal, which is basically you take over the city of Naples. And here's a Risco Oceania, which is basically a battleship type Risk where you try to send each other, attacking each other on the seas. Then there's some knockoff fan expansions like Rustco, which is basically a funny expansion where you're farmers taking over crops and whatnot. And there's the TEG games, which are like Risk. TEG. It's what they play in Argentina. It's basically Argentinian Risk. TEG 2 is basically an updated version from TEG 1. It's kind of like Risk, but it's also kind of like an Axis and Allies, I think, maybe. This one looks like it's a version. Because I think in this game, they have like airplanes and it's like they have additional things. Wow, 8 players. Secret Detective. This is a game where you're playing a Risk version of the independence of Argentina. Well, actually, the independence of America. So it's a game where you get to play the American independence. Between the Royalists and the Patriots. So it's historical. And then here's a card game version of it. Of TEG. Then here you go, a junior version of Tag. Then of course there's War, which is the Brazilian version of Risk. But I think it has some additional things that are not necessarily in Risk, but it's got some additional things. So it'd be pretty cool to collect all these games. They have 2 junior. Medieval Battle, which is not just Godstorm, it's, different than Godstorm. Then I got a Rome, Imperial of Rome edition here. And of course, they got a card version. And they have another medieval battle one. Sure why there's 2 of those in here. One is Agus Battleos Mythos, the other one is War Battleos. Then there's a Vikings version of War. Where you have the Viking gods helping you out too. And then there's a Game of Thrones version of War. So that's all the different war games and Risk games. And here's one bonus, Anodimna. So it's a conquest game where you play as a pup. I have this one, Dust. Actually, I have this one. It's actually not a bad game. It's kind of a Axis and Allies-ish type game set in the Dust universe. Magnifico. So this is like a war game here. Don't have it, but it's like a war game here where you're set in 16th century Europe. Sounds Risk-like. that's all the games. Matter of fact, I don't think that one's in here. The one I was mentioning, Risk. For some reason, this one was not in that list, even though it is a Risk game. Very interesting how Call of Duty was not in it. Now with Risk 2210 AD, they also had Frontline Season 1, which is basically Mars. Huh. Okay. There was 4 seasons of Risk Frontline, which I would love Renegade Studios or it's a license to bring these back, since they're bringing back Risk 2210 AD. There was the first one, which is Mars. There was the second one, which was a Tech Commanders, which were just some extra tech, which were actually just was an extra, a new commander. Tech Commanders. These are the official ones, and then there was Season 3, which was Factions, which just gave each set additional factions and additional 6 factions. Which basically makes it, there's different factions. And extra cards. And then the giant amoebas one was kind of extra cards plus the amoebas, which kind of work as like a zombie-ish faction. And that would have been all the official, but there's a whole bunch of unofficial Risk Risk games. You remember God is good, all our expansions to the Rift Room. God is good all the time, God is good. Keep on gaming, like, comment, subscribe, share. Jesus is real, everything, and have a great one.